Hi, everybody. It is Kathy, and I love to be selling. Come on in. I have a super treat for you today. My good, wonderful eBay seller friend, Maida Webster, is here joining me. And Maida is an extremely experienced seller. And her forte, she sells a lot of wonderful stuff. But the reason I brought her in to chat with us today is she's absolutely superb on dolls. She's going to give us some other great tips, but I want to give you a chance to meet Maida, to hear her story. Hi, Sharon. And to hear all about dolls, because you can make some very nice money selling on eBay and other sites selling dolls. So Maida, just to start off, tell everybody, how did you get started selling on eBay? You and your husband, Bill, because you work together.
Yes.
And also her eBay store, if you want to check it out, because it's full of goodies, is Connectables, Connectibles. And when the video's done or you're listening to me, I will put a link to their store so you can check it out. So Maida, let me know how you and Bill started.
Okay. Well, 1998, when I had never heard of eBay in a million years, a friend came over and said, "Have you just heard of this new site?" And she said, "You can theoretically find anything you want on there." Well, my name is very unusual. And as a kid, I never saw anything with my name on it until my aunt bought me a book that is about a girl named Maida Webster, interestingly enough. And it was a series not unlike the Bobbsey twins series.
I love
and
it.
It's a whole group of books. I don't know where my camera is. There's one, there's the other. It's a series of about 16 or 18 books. My mother got rid of them the way all of our mothers got rid of our stuff. And when I turned 50, I had a friend who was a librarian who went up and down the streets of New York City trying to find one of these Maida's little books for me. She found one. She never told me what she paid for it. So when my friend came in 1998 and said, "Have you heard of eBay? You can find anything." I said, "Let's go put in Maida's Little and see what happens." And of the 16 books, there were 7 of them listed on eBay in 1998 for $4 or $5 each. And so I immediately said, "This is the greatest thing." Bill, can you get that? So I immediately said, "This has got to be the greatest thing around." They've got these Maida books. I bought the entire series, which is behind me in my bookcase. It is one of my biggest treasures. And I started telling my family, "We have to get involved in this company." And the kids said, "That's crazy." Bill said, "That's crazy." So I took a tiny little bit of money and I bought some eBay stock because I was so impressed. They said, "You can't sell, you can't sell." And the stock kept going up and down and buying and selling. And then in the 2001, 2002, I said, "I'm sorry, I must start selling this." My mother passed away and I had some of her things and I started putting them up. And then we had this extraordinary opportunity. Bill had an aunt who lived in Ohio who was very peculiar and had rooms and rooms full of vintage dolls from the 1950s and 1960s, literally hundreds and hundreds of rooms. We had not been in her house since the 60s or 70s because she moved to Florida. It was freaky to look at these dolls. I knew nothing about dolls, but when she passed away, one of Bill's relatives said, "We have all of these rooms of hundreds and hundreds, and literally it was 1,000 dolls, actually, most of them in brown paper bags that she had bought in flea markets for $1 or $2 that she never unpacked." I would say she was a hoarder. They were in the basement. "And we're going to give them to Goodwill." And Bill said, "No, you're not. Maida has started this business." So he hopped on a plane. His brother flew up from Florida. They rented a U-Haul truck. And he brought home, driving from Ohio to Connecticut, 1,000 vintage dolls. I knew nothing. I would open up a box.
Hang on, Maida, this is when?
This was 2004.
Okay.
2000, I think 2004.
So he pulled into the driveway with 1,000 vintage dolls.
1,000 vintage dolls in a U-Haul truck. And we unpacked them and took up one of our garage bays. And then every day I would just take a box. And I would bring them in and I would see what the brand is. And I would go and buy a book, a reference book of Ideal dolls, Mattel dolls, American character dolls. And I would get in my bathtub with my book and I would just look at the pictures in every page so that if I opened a box and I saw a doll I recognized, I could go to the book. So I know you can do it online, but having a reference library to me is indispensable. I must have about 20 doll books that I use all the time. And one box at a time, I would open it up and it was filled with treasures because in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, when she bought these dolls, she paid $1 or $2 or $3. But in the 2000s, some of these dolls ended up being extremely valuable. There was an author called DeAngelis who wrote a group of books in the 40s and 50s, 40s mostly, about different immigrants coming to the United States. And as the booksellers would travel around the United States with a book about, whichever country it was, they had a sample doll about the character that was in the book. Unbelievably rare. Nobody had them. His aunt had one of these in the basement in a brown paper bag. So I just, in those days, in order to get help, there were no Facebook doll groups, but eBay had a doll community page. And those people were so helpful to me. I would every day come on and say, I don't know, what am I looking at? And at the end of the year, I had sold close to 1,000 of these dolls. And it was like getting a PhD in dollology. And once you look at all these pictures, when you come across something after that, it was very easy then to say, oh, I know what this is. I know what it isn't. Now there's so many websites you can go to, but my books really are invaluable. I can tell you about a collection we just got that if I didn't have the book, I would have been completely. Or how do you want to start it? You want to start with?
I was going to say, so let's start just first of all with, so let's say I have a doll, or I'm in a thrift shop or a consignment shop, or I'm online and there's an auction. First of all, what dolls are worthwhile and what dolls should I just walk away from? How can I find out what make or what brand the doll is?
Okay, so to start with, I'm going to use a Shirley Temple doll from the 1950s. Okay. The very first thing you do when you see a doll is you look on the back of its head. You can't see this now, but this doll is marked on her back, and she is marked on the back of her head, right here. And you might need a magnifying glass. If you are lucky enough, and that's why I'm starting with Shirley, if you are lucky enough to find a doll that has a mark, lift up the wig, look up here, and look down here. If you're lucky enough to find a doll that has that identification, you're off and running because you know the maker and you can then do some research. Now, this doll also has her original tagged outfit, which says Shirley Temple Ideal. So let's say you had a doll that wasn't marked. Sometimes hidden deep in the clothing, there is a label. I should also say a lot of people online call dolls freaky, and there's a whole group of people that want to just use them for Halloween. Don't be one of those people. You want to be one of those people that understands that these are really interesting.
It's great to know to look at the clothing, because the clothing might have a tag with the name of the doll.
Yes.
And it might have worn off on the doll itself.
Correct. Now, Ideal made it easy. They put the labels. Why can't I figure this out? Okay, they put the labels on the outside, but lots of little girls didn't like the labels, so they cut them off. So that was the negative of them on the outside. Some of them, the labels are now deep inside, and you have to totally undress the doll. So if you are really lucky, and that makes it easy, you have some identification. Now, the Shirley Temple dolls these are made by a company called Ideal, do not have Ideal on the back. It just has a number that says ST and then something that reflects the size of it. But that would be good enough if you just went on to Google and you put in ST dash whatever the number, doll, will pull up Shirley Ideal, Shirley Temple doll. Dolls on eBay are sold according to the material the head is.
So talk about that. What could the head be made of?
Okay, so if you think about the history of dolls, wooden dolls were probably the earliest.
Yeah.
I've never laid eyes on a 1770s wooden doll. Then they progressed and they made the most popular dolls became in the Victorian era to, let's say, the 1920s, what we call bisque and composition dolls. So I have one, she's not in very good shape, but these were breakable dolls.
Yes.
And so if little girls played with them, they were destroyed. Most of these bisque, and this is composition, which is a wood paste. This is bisque, which is ceramic. Most of these were made in Germany and France, and they are very clearly marked on the back of the head if you pull up the wig. And
So
it'll
it'll
say
France or Germany on it?
yeah, yes. Now I'm going to tell you, I've never had the pleasure of having one that says France. Those are the $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 dolls.
Oh, are they?
Yes, I
So
have
what
never.
for France?
I have never particularly had one. You're looking for jumeau, Jumeau, but I've had a lot of German ones. So
Okay.
this one, for instance, says Germany, and then above it says our pet. That's the name of this doll. If you go online and put in Germany, our pet, it will tell you exactly who made it. When you're lucky enough to do that, it's very straightforward. Okay. So we went to bisque dolls, composition dolls, but little girls broke those. The collection that I just got, which is from the 1940s,
Okay.
are called Nancy Ann Storybook dolls, and they were little tiny, precious, beautiful bisque dolls that are only 8 inches tall, that are the cutest things you've ever seen. And girls were given them, but they're breakable.
Okay.
So girls were given them in the 40s, and they made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And then in each style, so this one is called Beauty and the Beast. So it's from the nursery rhyme schedule. And these are the boxes.
Okay.
Polka dot boxes. They come in different colors. And because they were so breakable, a lot of girls in the 40s, for every birthday and every holiday, would get one of these, but they weren't allowed to play with them. They were put up on shelves. So we just bought a collection of 45
Wow.
and storybook dolls that somebody had never been allowed to play with. The ones that are played with are usually broken, but these are marked on the back. I'm not going to take her dress off because these say Nancy Ann Storybook on the back. So that's bisque from the 1940s.
Okay.
Then started making vinyl, which is what Shirley was in the 1950s, because they didn't break. So, and then they started making Barbies in the 1960s, which are made out of, a harder material.
Hard plastic, yeah.
Hard plastic. And so it's evolved from the bisque that's very breakable to, the two bisque, to the vinyl, to the hard plastic. Now, current modern dolls, and this is a very beautiful one, are, hold on a sec, she's stuck in here. This is a beautiful fashion doll.
Pretty.
These are more modern artist dolls. This is by somebody called Robert Tonner. Completely not breakable, beautifully hand sculpted, but also signed on the back of the head. So that's sort of that's the categories. It is a fashion doll if it has boobs and high heels. So little girls used to were originally given dolls that look like babies.
Yeah.
Barbie was the first to come out to be a fashion doll. So that's a whole separate category. Fashion doll is high heels, waist, and a bosom.
This is great.
It's great fun. Anybody have questions? I can't see.
I can see the question. Now you tell me, are there any dolls I should just walk away, like you said with the porcelain doll, even though it's a porcelain doll, but clearly
the porcelain wear. The Home Shopping Network, the QVC porcelain dolls are really sort of a sad story. They look beautiful. They will say on the box, collector's doll, heirloom doll. They were sold for $100, $110 on Home Shopping. They are from the 1990s. They're made in China. They look stunning. They made thousands of them.
Okay.
And we will before COVID, we would go into some houses sometimes that would have closets filled with that women who sat home
Yep.
and bought these thinking they would save them, impeccable. You can't get $5 for them.
Wow. Now,
Get
what about
five.
the Marie Osmond dolls? Because when I was on QVC, she was on there selling those
Now,
dolls.
some of hers are very nice and they sell
Okay.
nicely. Some of
Okay.
I would always take a Marie Osmond doll to sell because so artist dolls are different.
Okay.
Artist dolls that are porcelain can be one of a kind or five
Yep.
of a kind or 100 of a kind. They can sell upwards of thousands of dollars.
Good to know.
But when you're looking at, and the only way you know is by looking at the almost all of these porcelain, looking at the back of the head and looking at if they're in the box and they have the word collector in the box, you can pretty much be sure if they say collector, they're not worth anything.
Okay. Quick
Okay.
question on GI Joes. Have you ever sold a GI Joe?
Oh, we've sold huge GI Joes. GI Joes are amazing. We grab every GI Joes from the 60s and 70s are crazy money, crazy money. And so if they're not the reproduction ones in boxes are also, some of them are nice and they go 30, 40, $50, but the originals can go $500, $600, $700, $800 GI Joes. They call them action figures. They don't call them dolls because little boys didn't want dolls. They wanted an action figure. GI Joes are great.
That is fantastic, Maida. So Maida gave me links for some different research sites. I'll definitely put them up. Maida, other places, and I know there's good Facebook groups
yes.
for dolls, especially I know like with Barbies. So
okay, let me talk about Barbies for 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Barbies have on their hip, the back of their hip, there is writing here with a date on it.
Okay.
The date often says 1966 on dolls that were made last year. So people get very excited thinking they have the original Barbies because the date is on there, because that's the date the mold was made.
I was just thinking that. Okay.
So that's the date. Now, this is an original bubble cut Barbie from the 1960s.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of working with her. She had what's very common that's called green ear on the side. That's from girls leaving their little earrings in the ear and they turn their head. So I spent the summer using a special solution on 4 or 5 dolls to try to get rid of their green ear. But the first site that I gave you, the Barbie fashion doll that you're going to be sharing, tells you look at what's on for Barbies, you look at what's on the hip. And then you go and you look at the subtleties of the difference of the words, and you can tell if you have a real 1959 or 1960 Barbie, or if you're having a reproduction. A #1 original Barbie can sell for $7,000, $8,000. I have never seen one of those. They have a hole in the bottom of their foot. Because it's the first group, the first one they did had a stand that the foot would sit on, so it had a hole. I personally have never seen one. So then this is called a bubble cut. There were ponytails. So just don't get too excited on the hip until you look it up. But there's no guessing. It's very straightforward.
Good. And she gave me a link for a really good Barbie identification website. So I'll put that up. Last question. What about Roy Roger dolls? Have you ever had any of those?
The action figures, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, we've sold the horses and Dale Evans and those action figures. All of those are vintage and very collectible, very much worth doing. Now, condition is obviously also important. And there are some dolls from the 1950s that developed a putrid odor. So if you're in person, just do the sniff test. Just go like that. And if it smells putrid, walk away, because you can't get rid of it. It has something to do with what they made them out of.
What they made them out of.
They're not most of them don't have that issue, but that's why it's hard to buy sight unseen if you don't do the sniff test. But yes, Roy Rogers, all of those Western collectibles are very worthwhile. Johnny West is another name like that.
Yes, I remember those.
Yes, Cabbage Patch dolls, walk away. Beanie Babies, walk away. Those did not end up holding their value in any way, really. I mean, there may be one rare one, but not worth it.
Now, sourcing them, obviously, so thrift store, consignment store, yard sale. There's online auctions you can keep an eye on. I'm thinking estate sales.
Estate sales, you know, obviously due to COVID, we haven't been to an auction or an estate sale in a year. And yet, you know, this collection I just bought of the Nancy Ann, I bought online. And so you can still do it. Obviously, your fantasy is you're walking into somebody's house who has, like Bill's aunt, 10 rooms of dolls, don't care with what they have, or their children. My children have no interest in these. My grandchildren, no interest in these, although they all have dolls they like. Their dogs are terrified when they come in and see these dolls sitting here. So sometimes when people have an estate, they just want to be done. They just want to sell it. The children don't get. That's where you're going to find your best bargains. The best pricing for things, modern artist dolls. So you're either looking for the really antique Victorian, like the German and French dolls.
Right.
Those command the most money, and then unique artist dolls that are current, that are very limited edition or one of a kind. Those are your best deals also. And then your original Barbies from 59, 60, 61.
Maida, you're the best. Anything you want to close with? I was going to say, I mean, one thing we've always talked about is when you have a doll, it is worthwhile to do the research.
You must do the research.
G.I. Joes, that you spent the time to do the research, because you'll see people list things, and this is actually a way to source at times once you know your dolls, because people will list things and they will not realize the value of what they're listing because they haven't done their research.
And the other part of it is, there's no way to know why one is. Sometimes I had a friend who was downsizing. She had 2 daughters, Madame Alexander dolls, the 8-inch Madame Alexander dolls. A lot of people who have kids in the 70s bought their children these Madame Alexander 8-inch. They're beautiful. They're charming. She had one from each daughter. Neither daughter wanted them. They were from the 70s. They were all original, pristine. She said, will you sell them? Looking at them, they made hundreds. I don't have this memorized. I took them. One sold for $40, one sold for $480. Looking at them, you would never have known. Collectors, for whatever reason, and I don't remember why, valued one, they didn't value the other one. There's no way to know that without researching. But Madame Alexander dolls often had a banner in the front that tells you the name of the doll, and inside the clothing it often did. Otherwise, you have to just do the research.
So one last tip on that too, because I know, so when you're not, for instance, like the Madame Alexander doll, you do your research, you see they range in price. Do you find it better with the dolls to run them through auction or to sell them fixed price?
If it's one of the rare ones, you know, I use WorthPoint, but people use other things. If you go on and it's one of the rare ones, always better at auction. If it's the kind that eBay has, you know, which they do for a lot of these Madame Alexanders, 50 are running, then you just want to do fixed price, or you want to bundle a couple together. They made international dolls. So some people had collections, sometimes have 20 or 30 of these international dolls. You can't get hardly any. 2 of my granddaughters were just in a production of Little Women last weekend. So I like to buy them something from the shows that they're in. So I went online, and there were 2 Madame Alexander, Amy and Joe, the 2 roles they had. I bought them on eBay, 2 for $20 with free shipping. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. But we sold them another Madame Alexander doll for $400 or $500. There was no way looking at it to know. You have to, that's just from research. So if it's one of the rare ones, absolutely at auction. If it's one of the common ones, do what this lady did. She paid $2 with free shipping, and I jumped. So
that's great.
We have great fun. I mean, look at this. Who doesn't want to be selling?
I know, that's adorable.
This is not the cutest thing ever.
Now you tell me, just from the bit of research that you're done, what will she list for? Because she's in the original box and everything. She's
okay. So I bought 40 of these.
Okay.
And 42 of them, and I paid, I think, $400.
Okay.
So I paid approximately $40 for them. There isn't any in there that shouldn't sell for $30 or $40 each. No, I pay $10 each. Excuse me. I pay $10. I pay $10 each. There isn't any that shouldn't sell for $30 to $40 each, but they take a long time to sell because the collectors are older. But there was one in there that I spied in the photograph that I went to my book, and Mary had a little lamb with a certain lamb, a little mohair lamb in it. And in my book, in the lower right-hand corner, it said, we're not sure if this is original because it's the only known example of this lamb. So a price of $800 they put in the book in 2003. That one was in this collection. I have it up now at $900. I haven't gotten a bite yet, but I will. I mean,
will.
I will. So, but she will probably sell for $30 or $40.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what she's, and they're all in boxes. The whammy was the lady told me they were all in their original boxes. Her mother had passed away. Turns out none of them were in the right boxes. And so I had to sit with this book and look up every single box and see what the doll was supposed to look like. So it takes time, but great fun.
It is great fun, and they're beautiful dolls. Maida, thank you so much. And
Oh,
when
well,
the video's done, I will put up the links for the research. I will put up the link to Maida's store so you can enjoy browsing with her. Maida, thank you so much.
You're welcome. The best link is that doll reference link. And also there are Facebook groups for Barbies and
yeah,
for
Barbie has a lot.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Too.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.